Alexis is the accessibility and inclusive design lead at Splunk. You can find her on Twitter at AlexisXLucio, and we'll also be sharing her LinkedIn. All right, Alexis, I will stop sharing and let you take it away.
Awesome. Okay. Cool. Thanks for the awesome intro. As always, before I begin, I want to take a moment to do an Indigenous land acknowledgement. And I do this because since the 1400s and before, Indigenous lands, particularly the US, have been stolen and impacted in harmful ways. We've nearly eradicated an entire population, and I think it's really important for us to recognize the folks who were on this land before colonizers came. So I'm part of the SF chapter of Techqueria, which is on Ohlone land, and I'm giving you this presentation from Tongva land, which is modern day Los Angeles. So hi everyone. With that, my name is Alexis Lucio. I use she, her, they, them pronouns, and I spend most of my day as the accessibility and inclusive design lead at Splunk. A few of my million data points, as we at Splunk like to call it. I'm a first generation high school and four-year college grad. I identify as queer, a femme, Latinx, and I was the one who suggested this topic of how passion can fuel your career, which at this point I'm kind of like, why'd you do this to yourself? It was such a hard time to squeeze something into 5 minutes, but here we go, right? So my biggest realization as I was contemplating on my life was the moment of the 2016 election, where I found myself crying in the streets of a financial district. And I knew that somewhere my passion, my anger, and my sadness drove me to a new truth, which was that I decided at that moment to be the role model that I wanted to see growing up. You know, all my academic and even professional to this day accomplishments are always accredited to my gender or my ethnicity, instead of the fact that I could do things like everyone else. And the media portrays Latinx folks as only good, especially Latinas, for singing, background dancing, or like the talk show host. I had a really poor and traumatic coming out story, to be expected when you have a Bible thumping Mexican Catholic mother. And it actually put me back in the closet, so to speak. And it took me another 10 years to come out and really start embracing my queerness. So I figured in all of this, in the new world that we were going into, the least that I could do was give back and show up to show the next generation that there was more to us than what the media and society portrayed us to be. And maybe if there was one less queer kid who had a negative impact about their coming out experience, or had a chosen family to rely on, maybe I could do good in the world. So while trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my career, I ended up volunteering for a nonprofit called Interact Project. Fun fact, I had to join in 2017 because I missed the 2016 deadline by 2 days. But I ended up going in and being one of the foundational teachers for their design methodology 8-week program called Youth Design Academy. And it was everything that I had wanted. I saw Latinx students, Black students, Asian students, biracial students, and there was so much that I learned from them, and there was so much that they saw in me. And I knew that this was the direction that I wanted to pursue. Meanwhile, I had started work in product design as the first and only designer at a startup, the 5th woman, and the first woman of color. And I really just wanted to see more people who looked like me. And that's where I developed this curiosity for connection. I started joining dance teams, going to design community events, joining Slack channels like Techqueria. And I asked myself, who could I see myself as that kind of looks like me? Which was hard when you're queer, Latinx, first gen, woman, all these identities. But whoever I did see, I asked for informational interviews. And it really drove this curiosity or even a desire for education through lived experiences and hearing others. And it was through the Techqueria Slack actually that I got my job at Splunk. From there, that was the first company in which I saw employee resource groups for the first time. And that was something that was completely unheard of to me, but really pivotal when I look back on it. Pride, which is the LGBTQIA star employee resource group, gave me a home when my actual workload wasn't great. And it allowed me to feel safe enough to be out and happy and authentic to be out in my own workplace. It inspired me in the people work so much that I ended up with another coworker co-founding Somos, which I got to name, excitingly enough, which is our Latinx employee resource group at Splunk. Also, I started doing the work to work through my anger, guilt, shame, and sadness around my identity and who I was. And it was one random session that my curandera looked at me in the eyes and said, I don't know why I want to say this right now, but I do know that your purpose on earth is to open the doors for others. And that hit me in a really interesting way. And I said, okay, well, if my job is to open doors for others, then others have to hear my story. So I decided to look into speaking in remote now and pre-COVID in-person presentations. This is an event that was hosted at Slack for QTPOC Mentorship Night last year. And I have to admit, while it's absolutely terrifying, sharing my story is liberating, even healing, and it allows me to make connections with others, which is my passion. And soon enough, my friends, chosen family, and coworkers were seeing recordings of my talks, or even are in these talks right now. I see y'all, thanks for coming. And one day last year in September, my head of design asked me to have a one-on-one with him. And after assuring me multiple times that I wasn't going to be fired, he looked me in the eye and asked me, how would you like to think of diversity and inclusion beyond race, gender, and sexual orientation? And he explained to me that because of the work that he had seen via me speaking or the ERG work, that he thought I was a perfect fit to be Splunk's first accessibility designer. And that's now. Here I am, grateful and still a little dazed that I have a career that allows me to practice authentic allyship and allows me to learn and advocate to support subjects like disability justice, data justice, and social inequity. So I leave you all with some food for thought. What fuels you, whether it's with or without money? Hopefully without money. And what parts or all of it can you bring into telling your career narrative? And also recognize that that answer to those questions may change. So always give yourself some time to practice reflecting, contemplating, and evaluating. Thanks for listening to me today. You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn if we've met in real life, and Interact Project is very busy in these trying times. We are looking for volunteers and donations and sponsorships, so please consider working with us. Thanks.